Almighty, my God, plans for me goes beyond my wildest dreams. There's nothing my God cannot do. There's nothing my God cannot do. There's nothing my God cannot do.
Well, welcome to Wellness Issues. I'm your host, Chris Sylvain, and there's nothing that God cannot do and cannot do for you. We're just truly excited about today and excited about everything that is going on, knowing that God is in charge of everything. Well, welcome this morning. We have an awesome guest for you this morning, one by the name of Attorney Pamela Meanes. She is the president of the National Bar Association. Is the largest group of African-American lawyers and the oldest group. Really fantastic what's going on with her today and really just doing great things. And when we look at the issues of mass incarceration of African-American male, the young African-American male, and we can really and truly see that the big problem is in the criminal justice system. And so we're so excited to have literally, I would say, the leading person in the focusing on the African American in the criminal justice system, Ms. Pamela Meanes. Welcome, Ms. Meanes. How are you today?
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Thank you so much for having me on your show. You're doing such a great job of putting the issues out there, and thank you for your gracious and humble comments. I thank you. Thank you.
Hey,
happy to be here today.
Hey, well, look, excited. We're truly honored to have you. It is a time, and literally, looking at some of the work thrust into the national spotlight in Ferguson, but this is the time, and it literally always has been, when we're dealing with the criminal justice system, and the question becomes: do we have the muscle in the African American community to really hit this criminal justice system to deal with this? I know your group, so we got lawyers all over the country, but literally we're talking about heavy lifting, and you guys are doing a great job. Let's even start off with in 25 cities you're filing a records request, throwing the attack there.
Yes. Well, let me tell you, I absolutely believe, without question, that the African American community has the muscle to do this. We are not any newcomers to making change in a nation that says that we are equal and have equal access to justice. We have no problem presenting a check to be cashed that was given to us a long time ago. So I'm absolutely confident that we have the muscle within our community. Sometimes the light just needs to be lit to get us to moving. And I think that it would, as it relates to the criminal justice system, part of that is dealing with laws. And so it is the responsibility of African American lawyers to take on that mission, to put a plan together and to attempt to implement it. Chris, before there was a Michael Brown situation, and God has a way of doing what he does, because I never knew it, becoming president when I was installed on July the 31st, and a week later that I would be thrust into this issue. But prior to Michael Brown, there was the Eric Garner situation, and I have many people in the National Bar Association that actually practices on both sides of the aisle of this police brutality issue. And one young man out of Dallas, Texas, who does this work a lot, he's my communication manager, Daryl Washington, came to me and said, President-elect Meanes, police brutality is the new civil rights. And if black lawyers don't do something about it, nothing will happen on this issue. And we need to have a town hall meeting at our convention. And I said to him, absolutely, let's do that. And so our criminal law section decided to have a town hall meeting, and we vetted the issues. And they taught me that this is a problem around America, that what happened in New York is systemic, and that this is a national epidemic. And I asked them, well, why isn't the problem being resolved? They say there's no national database. I said, what's the solution? They said the solution is for the federal government to come in, to look at these different police departments, to take some of them over, to dismantle them, and to monitor them. And they said, but the U.S. government can't do that without the evidence. And so as lawyers, we decided to collect that data and to do open records requests to 25 cities that had large populations of African Americans in them and had a pattern and history of alleged police brutality. And we decided to do open records requests, gathering information about those cases, analyzing that, and then presenting a report to Eric Holder, to Attorney General Holder, and say, here are some cases that you need to go in, the police department, that you need to go in and see. And then here are some egregious cases that you need to step in right away. But I said to those individuals, that's all good and well, and that's going to take us a little time. What do we do in between gathering that information and making that report so that we can save lives? And so we came up with this, know your rights because it can save your life, going out into the community and actually teaching our community how to interact when they are confronted by the police, and what they should do and what rights they actually do have. We give them these little cards that lay out their constitutional rights. And in addition to that, lastly, we said the most thing that sustains change is to change the law. And so we are pushing 4 pieces of federal legislation to try to make some sustaining change in this area. One has to do with desk cams. Another has to do with changing the definition of excessive force or adding some definition to it, and adding some definition to what it means to elevate force, and then making it almost felony murder for another police officer to see another officer engage in police brutality but not do anything about it.
Awesome. Now that's muscle. That's muscle, and that's what it's all about, to come strong, because the problems are strong. It's not weak problems. I mean, like you said, they're deeply systemic. They've been going on for hundreds of years, and we're just, without people uncovering the muck and going into the dirt and grabbing it out, it's hidden. The cameras, television news or whatever, everything is hidden.
Well, Chris, you know this. This issue of police brutality within the African American community is nothing new. The Black Panther Party was started because it was fighting against police brutality. That's in the 60s.
Wow.
Take it up to the 90s and the 80s. Rappers, African American rappers, were rapping about this and the brutality of what was happening to them. But instead of us listening to the messenger, it was easy for us to kill the messenger than to listen to the message. And really what you just said is why this has become an issue, because of videoing. And, people's natural inclination is not to believe a black man when they say somebody beat him down.
Right.
There's a natural distrust, and people really didn't believe that it could be happening as egregious as people were saying. But when the video started to be released and people started to see it on social media, there was an outrage about it. I mean, because if you even look in the Eric Gardner case, you see the police report that is written up by the officers. They talk about him resisting arrest. They talk about him being difficult. They mention nothing about a chokehold. But lo and behold comes the video of an innocent bystander taping that incident, and we see a whole nother side of the story. So you're right. It is shedding light on this situation, and that's why the National Bar Association is forcing the community not to make this a conversation, to make it a movement, because lives really depend on it.
Hey, look, it would take nothing less, and hey, we applaud everything. Let's even grab a caller. We have
Absolutely.
Mark out of Houston. Welcome, Mark. Come on.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Great.
That's good. I just want to know, I know she had said they put something together and come up with a bunch of cities, and I see if she can name some of the cities. But as far as what's happening here in America about this police brutality, we as African Americans, basically have done all that we can do with a black president and also with black Eric Holder, Attorney General. They did all they could do for us because we all had videos and cameras and stuff like that. And if you look at it, what we need to figure out is on the Trayvon Martin case, we had witnesses. And the young girl, they throwed her out. They made her look real bad. Okay, well then what about the the Michael Brown case. They got the witnesses, but they're not accepting those witnesses. Then we got the videos where they tell us to sit and wait because we got to first look at the video and see if that was a chokehold or whatever. See, these are the situations that we as African Americans are up against. And what I'm thinking is that we have to get out and like you say, we talked about this voting mess and this and whatever, but we need judges. We need people to come in and hold these people, the word I say is accountable. And until they are held accountable, no matter what type of videos or witness or evidence that we come forward, there's nothing will be done. And it is showing it across this whole country, you know. So we need to put people in office that will make these police officers held accountable, because some of these African American men and women are afraid of their life when it comes to these police officers. And what are they going to do? Some of them are protecting themselves, but if they turn around and hurt the officer, then they on charge for assault against a police officer. But I never seen a police officer get charged for assaulting somebody when they arrest them. You follow what I'm saying?
Oh, I absolutely understand what you're saying, but let me tell you, we haven't done all we can do. I disagree with you on that, and let me tell you why. Let me tell you why police officers are not indicted and why they ultimately don't go to trial. In America, the law is that a police officer has the authority to elevate force to the level that he or she believes is reasonable to protect themselves if they feel their life is in jeopardy. Sir, that is so arbitrary. It is so subjective. There's no real definition to that. So that when you put that evidence before that jury, or when you put the evidence before the grand jury, you're really asking the grand jury or the jury to actually put themselves in the place of the officers. The National Bar Association is saying that's too subjective. It's too arbitrary. In law, we call that broad. And so what we're saying is limit that. Put some definition to what it means to elevate force. When a police officer goes into a situation, there are some good cops out there who do have to fear for their lives, and we're not fighting against them, and we're not trying to take rights away from them. We're just trying to weed out the bad ones who take advantage of that kind of standard and will use the code words of, I fear for my life, I fear for my life, when there was no fear at all. A cop goes into a situation with four pieces of weapons. He has a billy club, he has a taser, he has a car, and he has a gun. Right. We're saying to the federal government, put some definition and require some training of what it means to do that, and then you'll see a difference in the application of the law. The same is true about excessive force. What you look at, sir, and believe is egregious, that's not what the law says, though. Excessive force is connected to whether or not the officer acted reasonable when thinking his life is in jeopardy. We're saying that's arbitrary and capricious. Put some definition to it. So the National Bar Association is not waiting for them to draft the law. We're going to draft the law.
Can I put a definition on that? And the reason why I say that, and you're absolutely 100% right. But if we, like you said, we go to the grand jury. But remember one thing. 98% of these killings by these officers are unarmed African-American men. Those should be the tools that we should use to the grand jury and say who are bringing these guns to these crimes and to these things when it's happening. It is the police officers are the ones who doing that. And if the grand juries look at this pattern, because if I'm convicted of a crime, one or three or four crimes, they're going to look at it and say, oh, this is a bad person. Well, the law enforcement are bringing their guns to these young unarmed men, but they're winding up dead. Somehow
but you got to remember,
that
sir,
they're accountable for this, though.
But this is what you got to understand. It's called application of the law, and a grand jury and a jury can only apply the facts to the law that exists. I'm telling you, the law right now doesn't work because it ends up doing what you just said. So it's up to us.
When we asking the African Americans, we don't care. All we asking is for an arrest, give him a jury trial like George Zimmerman. He got a jury trial. When he was found not guilty, we didn't accept it. We didn't like it, but we had to accept it. Just like the Republican and Democrat Party, we didn't like what had happened, but we accepted. Give them a trial. Hold them accountable for that. And what they're doing on the Eric Garner case is marking every Tuesday, Thursday, whatever they're doing, until these people are held accountable. This is what we are asking for. We know they're going to get a jury trial, and if they do get a jury trial, they may be found not guilty, but we want them to be held accountable. That's absolutely, because we are being held accountable on every level that we do here in America.
I completely agree with you, and we have to use every weapon in our arsenal to do it. We have to use the vote, but we got to change the laws, and we got to keep this as, I want you to stay as passionate as you are right now. Because you live in Houston, Texas?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio is on the list, because you know why? Texas is the number one killing capital of the world when it comes to police brutality. I was just there a couple of weeks ago. Houston has a major problem. And so this is not, the Michael Brown situation is nothing but an example of what's happening across this nation. And that's why I believe we have the muscle, because the fact that you're as passionate as you are, it exemplifies what's happening in Ferguson. What happened in Little Rock, Arkansas last night when we were at the Know Your Rights meeting. At some point, we become fed up and say, enough is enough. And we're saying, I'm telling you that the National Bar Association has committed itself to saying there's a part we have to do in this fight, and we're committed to doing it.
Thank you so much, brother.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Brother Mark. Well, let's bring on Miss Elaine, line 2.
Hello.
Hey, Miss Elaine, come on.
Hello?
Yes, Miss Elaine.
Hi. I was just calling because I heard your speaker saying something about we need to do all that we can do. My son was shot in the back in Columbus, Ohio in 2008. The police officer that shot him was promoted. Now, losing your child is a smack. Promoting the person that killed your child, that's like a stab. And we did all we could do. We went to the Justice Department. The attorney even had to charge us. I mean, how many families can afford, even though he didn't charge us everything because we lost the case, but there still were charges that were, people just can't afford it. We protest, we wrote letters, we went to the city, we went to city council meetings, we went to the chambers. I live in New Orleans. I don't live in Columbus, Ohio. And it was just, it's only so much, and like you say, until we get the right officials, the grand jury hearing, that was a joke. That was just a joke. The people in the grand jury hearing acted like from day one it was the officer that killed a young black man, automatically not guilty. They didn't want to hear anything we had to say. The witnesses that were out there, they were not called to the grand jury hearing. This was my first time. I didn't know that you could even have an attorney in a grand jury hearing. I
think we lost you. Go ahead.
And you know what, Chris? She's bringing up the real point. And what she said is that she lost her child in 2008.
Yes.
But it's as if she lost him yesterday. Those are the stories I'm hearing. But this is the problem. She went to all those places by herself, Chris.
Wow.
Where were the crowds? The reason the Justice Department and the reason the media is in Ferguson is because they refuse to shut up.
Right.
It is not the Brown family that is demanding justice. It's the community. And that's what I'm saying to us as a whole. We have to, at some point, say it's not acceptable.
Right.
So I don't want her going to all of those things by herself. And the National Bar Association is saying as long as we have a national stage to make it an issue, we're going to do that. And that's the problem. We probably never heard of her case. I've heard of her case because I've researched Ohio, and they're on our list.
Right.
I have a list, but there's no database. There's no national database that you can go to, Chris, and punch in and look at all the names. But these are the mothers who are not getting the media attention. These are the mothers that the pains are still fresh, and that's the reason I say it's not something that we can afford to even take a break on. Chris, I have 4 children.
Wow.
They're 13, 9, 6, and 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been on the road since September the 19th.
Right.
You know why? Because this is a serious matter. And what I don't want to happen, Chris, I don't want my 13-year-old son to walk outside of my complex and he be mistaken for a boy who's trying to cause trouble in the area. And then I have to bury my child.
That it is so huge.
The child laying on the street.
Yes.
I look at as my child.
Yes, you can hear the pain in her voice, and you're right. It's almost as if it was just yesterday. Before we catch another call, I want to bring this up. We're dealing with police brutality and the Michael Brown issue and so forth, but let's expand it. The entire thing we're dealing with is mass incarceration and how police brutality. It doesn't it fit in the same vein of unlawfully arresting black folk for the same crimes that white folk commit every day. We just had an instance here in New Orleans where it was a housing report that reported how, blacks are discriminated against, which we already know in housing. But isn't it the same issue with the police department, black and white policemen, where the culture is so deep where not only will they beat the black young man, they will arrest the black young man, they will throw him into jail, and so therefore we have a segregated jails with just black folk.
Chris, you bring up an excellent point. You bring up a point that I hope that your audience really get what you're saying. You're saying all of this is interconnected. And so, Chris, if I can take you even back a little further, it's all really connected to how we educate our black kids and what the system prepares it for. This thing called the school-to-prison pipeline, it really is police brutality and incarceration really is a self-fulfilling prophecy of that.
Yes.
When a teacher decides that an African-American child is not capable of being taught and that they're a troublemaker and that they don't want to waste their time with that child because their child is too disruptive, they go on this bin of what is called suspensions.
Yes.
And so they give these children all of these suspensions, and eventually the child is out of school and there's no education. I don't know if you know about the report that came out that said African-American children are disciplined at a higher rate than any other children.
Yes.
And that system then either pushes our children into prison because the police target them as these are not kids we can trust, these are not children, that have anything going for them, or it pushes them into a grave.
Yes.
And so you're exactly right. I was at a town hall meeting last night where a police chief said the reason we target you is because you commit all these crimes. And you set yourself up to make us think that we have to fear you. But nobody was saying that about the young man who went into a theater and shot up a whole theater because he imagined in his mind that these people were against him. To the Columbine 12. Nobody said we must go after a bunch of European Americans or white people because they're going to massively shoot up schools. The same application is not applied. So, yes, even if you look at the application of the drug sentences, crack versus cocaine, you're exactly correct. The application of the law as it applies to people of color is done differently, and that is seen. I don't know if you know about the Smart Bill Act. Have you heard of that?
No.
Where they're trying to revise and reduce some sentences as it relates to drugs, so that they can get some of the people out the prison system. The National Bar Association has endorsed that act, because we understand that sentencing laws in the criminal system does impact us differently. And so you're exactly right. This is a bigger conversation because it either leads to two paths. It either leads our children to jail, which takes them out of the pipeline, or it leads them into a grave, which takes them out of the pipeline, which means I don't have a Chris on the radio. It means I don't have a doctor. I don't have a lawyer. And so it's a serious issue. You're exact. It's a much bigger conversation. And if I can say this, Chris, so what we did in terms of education is we launched a national program whereby African-American lawyers will volunteer to represent African-American children at suspension hearings so that we can keep them in school. And we found an agency in Florida that says that if you get them out of trouble, we will counsel their families and them for free. Because I recognize that I can get you out of trouble, but if I don't deal with the real issue, because the child sitting next door, Chris, that's my child.
That's right.
It's not their problem, it's our problem. And then the 100 Black Men said, well, if you get them out of trouble, Pamela, They counsel them. We'll bring them into our mentorship program. And that's what our community has to do. We have to be collective in our thought about how we solve our problem. And then we got to do what the first gentleman said.
That's right.
We got to hold people accountable.
That's right.
And make them be transparent. So you're exactly right, Chris. This is a bigger issue than whether or not the police. And you're right. It's not a color of black and white. It's a color of blue.
You got it. You got it. We have a couple of more minutes. Let's grab line 3. Miss Mary, if you can come right on.
Yeah, I'm listening to the conversation about the police brutality. If you must remember that we are still considered inhuman. This is just a repeat of what happened in the past, because a dog's life, it seems, is more valuable than a black man's life. Anytime Michael Vick got 2 years for dog fighting, and these people can go out here and murder us without any charges being held against them, and one of the most heinous crimes happened right here with Henry Glover's head being decapitated, as it did back during the slave revolt. So, I mean, what you see happening is just a repeat of things that happened in the past. So that's my remarks on that. Thank you very much.
No, thank you so much, Miss Mary. And let's grab, and we're doing both together. Let's grab Mr. Don on line 2. You come right on.
Okay, my name is Don Hayes. My son's name was Edward Hayes Jr. He was shot in the back by a police officer, picked up, kicked in the face, handcuffed, and he allowed him to die. He killed him. He murdered him. I went to the Justice Department. I went through all type of legal things till the money ran out and I couldn't afford to do it anymore. The district attorney, you know, when something like this happened, they should have a special district attorney to handle these cases, you know, because the district attorney works with the police department. In this case, it was the district attorney and the police who formed the task force together. He was the prosecutor. When they called recess, he went out, you know, and greeted the police. He never come to me and my wife one time. You know, my son been murdered. Nothing has been done about it. What is the Justice Department for? What's their purpose? You know, and I find that on this incident, one police officer that night had a taser gun. Everybody else had guns. My son was shot in the back, kicked in the face. I mean, I went through all type of legal things. I mean, I went before 3 judges. When one judge said, if a man had his hands up and he surrendered, you know, and you shoot him in his back, that sounds like murder. So I'm thinking things is going to overturn in my favor, but they goes together. And if people say it's not a black and white crime, but it's mainly white police shooting black youth, you know, and that's the problem I have. I got to live with this. You know, I don't think it's fair. I think something needs to be done. Somebody needs to do something about it sometime. Other than that, it may prevent another black kid from getting killed.
Ms. Meanes.
Oh, I think he makes an excellent point in this. If you keep hearing the callers say this, they said, I ran out of money. Yes. I ran out of places I could go.
Yes.
We cannot leave them alone. We can't let them fight it by themselves. It's not a state problem. It's not a city problem. It's a national problem. It's our problem. His issue is my issue. And so he brought up the point of it is difficult for the police and for the system of police to police themselves. He's getting into what is called the trust issue, which is the reason why there has to be a national demand for the Attorney General to come in. There's 2 different kinds of coming in.
Yeah,
there's Attorney General coming in to investigate a single case,
right,
and the Attorney General coming in to investigate a department. And there has to be a cry for both. The standard of whether or not civil rights are being violated when it comes to an individual case is so stringent. It's so high.
Yeah, we have to close it. But before you say it real quick, and what we will do, we'll be ready to give your information. We got to get back to you. We have to get your information where everybody can get to you. The National Bar Association, Ms. Meanes. Hey, y'all have heard it. God is real. Thank you so much.
Searched all over, couldn't find nobody. I looked high and low, still couldn't find nobody. No